You ever see the woods at night? I mean, really see them. No moon, no stars, just thick black trees pressing in like a silent crowd, watching. That's the kind of night it was when I got the call. Cold, still. The kind of stillness that feels unnatural. I used to work night patrols in the Manistee National Forest in Michigan. Roughly 500,000 acres of dense, tangled woods, dotted with old trails, abandoned fire roads, and stretches of land nobody has walked in decades. Most of the time it was uneventful. Clearing downed trees, keeping an eye out for drunk campers, the usual Forest Service work. But there's always one story, one thing that doesn't sit right. For me, it was Whispering Pines. That name doesn't show up on any modern map. You have to dig through the old ranger station records, the handwritten ones from the 60s, maybe earlier. Back then, fire roads weren't paved, and some were just suggestions, trails hacked into the trees that quickly grew back. Whispering Pines was one of those. I hadn't thought about it in years, not until that night. It was just past 11 p.m. when dispatch radioed in. A group of campers hadn't checked in. 3 college kids from Grand Rapids, supposedly headed to Site B14, near the southern boundary. Routine enough. Happens all the time. Phones die, people lose track of time. But something in the dispatcher's voice put me on edge. They were last seen headed toward an unmarked access road. Coordinates ping close to Whispering Pines, she said, then a pause. That's not an active site, right? No, I said slowly. That area's been decommissioned for years. Another silence. We sent a text and got a response. Just one word. Help, then nothing. That's when I grabbed my gear, flashlight, radio, my service weapon. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Figured I'd be back in an hour. Just another case of drunk kids stumbling into the woods. I was wrong. Dead wrong. The fire road was little more than a path now. Nature had reclaimed it with a vengeance. I left the truck by the main road and started on foot. The forest swallowed the sound of my boots almost immediately. No wind, no rustling, just my breathing and the distant crack of branches under unseen. Wait, I followed the trail for about 2 miles before I found it. A campsite, barely visible in the beam of my flashlight. The tent had been shredded, not collapsed, not trampled, torn apart like a paper bag. Shreds of nylon fluttered from tree branches. Sleeping bags lay open and empty, one halfway into the underbrush. But what chilled me most were the trees. The bark had been raked, 5 deep gouges, each at least 2 inches apart, running in perfect parallel lines down the trunks. Some high up, too high for a bear, too deliberate for a wild animal, and no blood, no drag marks, just nothing. That's when I heard it, a whisper, faint, like wind through pine needles, but there was no wind, and it wasn't coming from one direction. It seemed to echo, moving in a circle around me like the forest itself was murmuring secrets I wasn't supposed to hear. I should have turned back right then. I should have called it in, but something pulled me deeper, a wrong kind of curiosity, or maybe something else. And so, I followed the whispers. You ever follow a sound and not realize you're moving until it's too late? That's how it was for me. The whispers were faint, but persistent, almost melodic, like a lullaby sung in reverse. I didn't realize how far I'd walked until I turned and couldn't see the campsite anymore. My flashlight caught only thick trunks and undergrowth. I tried my radio, static. I tried again, still nothing. It wasn't unusual for radios to drop out that deep in the woods, especially around valleys or heavy tree cover, but this felt different, like something wanted me cut off. I told myself it was all explainable, just faulty batteries, atmospheric interference. But deep down, I knew better. About 30 minutes in, I reached a clearing I didn't recognize. That's saying something. I knew that forest like the back of my hand, but this spot, it was wrong. The trees didn't grow right here. They leaned inward, unnaturally twisted like they were recoiling from the center of the clearing. And in the middle was a mound of rocks. Old, covered in moss and thick veins of black lichen. I stepped closer and saw something carved into one of the stones, not English, not anything I recognized. The symbols were angular, almost like runes, but they shifted when I stared too long. My eyes started to water. That's when I smelled it, rot, like something had died weeks ago and was left to stew in the sun. But there were no flies, no animals. Just that scent, thick and clinging to the back of my throat. Then the whispering returned, but louder this time, closer. And I swear I could understand it. Turn back, my breath caught in my chest. I spun around, scanning the tree line. Nothing, but I wasn't alone, I knew it. I backed away slowly, light darting between trees, expecting something to lunge. But the forest remained still, almost too still, like it was holding its breath. Then I saw it. Between the trees, something huge, crouched low to the ground, its shape distorted by shadow. At first I thought it was a bear, but no bear moves like that. It was hunched, limbs long and jointed wrong, like a man stretched on a rack. Its eyes caught my beam, two amber discs unblinking. Not reflecting, glowing. The thing didn't move, didn't flinch. It just watched. I didn't wait. I ran. Branches whipped my face, roots grabbed at my ankles. I didn't care. I just needed out. But no matter how far I ran, the trees kept getting tighter. The trail I'd come from was gone, replaced by endless woods and a whisper in my ear repeating over and over, "You weren't supposed to come here." Eventually, my legs gave out. I collapsed near a fallen log, gasping. My flashlight flickered, then died. Total darkness swallowed me, and that's when I heard the scream. Not from an animal, not human either. It was between wet and feral, a sound dredged from something ancient and wrong. It echoed through the forest like thunder, shaking the leaves. I curled against the log, clutching my dead flashlight like it could protect me. I don't know how long I lay there, too scared to move. Hours, maybe. Eventually, the whispering faded, the forest exhaled, and the silence returned. I stood up, knees shaking, and saw faint light on the horizon. Dawn. But that meant I'd survived the night, or so I thought. When daylight finally broke, the forest didn't look like it had the night before. The trees stood calm and ordinary, sunlight filtering through the pines like soft gold. Birds chirped, the wind stirred. Everything felt normal, but it was a lie. I could feel it in my bones. I tried retracing my steps back to the torn campsite. Nothing looked familiar. I was lost in a part of the forest that shouldn't have existed. Paths curved where they should have been straight. Slopes rose where maps said it was flat. It was like the land had changed behind me. Then I saw something that made my stomach drop. The mound. I'd come full circle. Somehow, despite walking for what felt like miles, I was back at the same clearing with the ruined stones. Only this time, it wasn't empty. A boot, half buried near the base of the mound, faded blue canvas. I recognized the brand. One of the missing campers. The laces were torn, frayed like they'd been chewed, but there was no foot inside. No blood. Just the boot. I circled the mound slowly, scanning for more. That's when I found the camcorder. It was wedged between two rocks, its casing cracked, lens shattered. I didn't expect it to work, but it did. The screen flickered to life in my hand, battery somehow still clinging to a sliver of power. There was only one video file. I hit play. The footage was shaky, mostly trees and frantic movement. The person holding it was breathing hard, whispering, "We shouldn't have come here, it's watching us, it's in the trees." Then came the screaming, someone off camera yelling, and then a sound I'll never forget. A low, bone-deep growl, like metal grinding underwater. The camera turned. In the last second of footage, something moved between the trees. Fast, blurred, tall, too tall. The clip ended in static. I stood frozen, the silence around me deafening. I didn't know what to do. Report this? Who'd believe me? I took the camcorder, stuffed it in my pack, and forced myself to move. I finally found a trail about an hour later, an old service path I hadn't seen in years. It led me out to the main road, and not long after I reached the ranger station. When I stumbled inside, one of the day shift rangers, young guy, barely 20, looked at me like I'd crawled out of a grave. "You okay, man?" he asked. "You're white as a sheet." I handed him the camcorder. 3 missing campers. South boundary, site B14. Call it in, but don't go alone. He stared at me. "You find them?" I shook my head. "No, just don't go back to Whispering Pines." Later, that day a search party was dispatched. Dozens of rangers, dogs, even a helicopter. They combed the area I marked on the map, but the campsite, gone. No shredded tent, no claw marks, just an empty grove of trees, untouched. They found nothing, not even the mound. And the camcorder malfunctioned, they said. Data corrupted. No footage left, like it never happened. After the failed search, I took a few days off. Told my supervisor I was sick, which wasn't a lie. I hadn't slept, hadn't eaten. My mind kept replaying the whispering, the claw marks, those glowing eyes. But more than anything, that thing in the woods. It was still there. I could feel it. I started digging. Whispering Pines wasn't just a forgotten fire road. It was erased. Every record past the 1980s had it blacked out or redacted. But in a dusty archive box buried beneath old maintenance logs, I found a copy of a ranger's journal dated 1974. There were only a few entries left intact. Most were water damaged, but the ones I could read chilled me more than anything I'd seen out there. Third disappearance this summer, all near Whispering Pines. Locals say there's something old in those woods. They call it the Hollow. Man said to mimic voices, "Whisper your name through the trees." Told the new guy to stay away from that trail. He laughed. Now he's gone. The final entry simply read, "We were warned, we didn't listen." That was nearly 50 years ago, and people are still going missing. I resigned the next week. I told them it was burnout, that I wanted a desk job. The real reason? I couldn't stop hearing it. Even at home, in the dead of night, when the wind picks up and rattles the windows, sometimes I hear it. Not wind, whispers, soft, familiar. Sometimes it's my name, sometimes it's someone else's. I've tried to move on, build a life outside of the forest. But part of me knows I never left it. Not fully. Because that place, that thing, it doesn't let go. A few months ago I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a photo. Grainy, black and white. Looked like it had been taken on an old trail camera. The date stamped in the corner, April 9th, 2023. It showed trees, dozens of them, and in the middle, something standing, tall, lean, back turned, long arms down at its sides. It wasn't looking at the camera. It was looking at me. I burned the letter. But some nights, I wake up with the scent of pine needles in my room, and something scratching lightly at the window. Not hard enough to break the glass, just to let me know it remembers, and it's waiting. So if you ever go hiking in Manistee National Forest, if you hear a voice in the trees or stumble across an old road the maps don't show, turn back. Because the forest keeps what it wants, and not everything lost out there is gone. Some of it is watching, still whispering.